Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I am the head coach at Grace Financial Coaching. And I'm super excited to have my friend Nancy Ward with us today. Nancy is another financial coach, but as a single parent, Nancy had to figure out the best way to manage her money month to month, save for the future, and try not to add more debt while on a limited income and budget. We've definitely heard this story, but not everyone is as successful. Nancy developed the weekly debt plan back in 2017. She was able to attack her credit cards and loans on a weekly basis, which kept her money flexible while still giving her the opportunity to pay more than the minimums due each month. Nancy's passion to help others manage their own payments and their own ongoing debt led her to become a financial coach. And Nancy believes with the proper systems, anyone can reduce their interest payments, pay down their debts, and have their money work for them. Nancy, how are you?
I am doing well on this beautiful sunny day. How about you?
Good. Yeah, it's sunny here too. A little chilly for my taste, but it's sunny outside.
It's March.
It's March. So Nancy, I love this weekly debt plan thing because when I was paying down my own debt before I learned any tactics, before I knew who Dave Ramsey was, I think probably the only financial person I could have identified was Susie Orman back then. And I still didn't know what she was talking about. But back in the days when I realized I had to do something about my debt, I started off by paying my debts weekly as well. So please elaborate on how you developed this.
Well, same situation where I had all the debt. So I came up with a weekly debt plan after I was divorced. So let me tell you that before I got married, I had $40,000 of credit card debt plus a car payment. So yeah, I completely understand where people have been when they're like, "Oh, you've never been in debt." It's like, well, I kind of think I have. But how I came up with it is, bills would come in, and would I be able to pay it? And the first of the month, the rent's due. The 5th of the month, the car payment's due. The 20th of the month, the credit card's due. But we don't get paid on the 1st and the 5th and the 20th. We get paid whenever our boss pays us. So, we always have money at the wrong time of our paycheck. So how it kind of came about was, it was the first shocker when I had to pull money out of my kids' savings account in order to pay my property taxes because I was because I was divorced. It was a mortgage. We had already paid off the house while we were married. So my mortgage was basically to pay off my current car and some other debts and things like that. So that was the easiest thing, is just get a mortgage, get that all cleared out, get it out of his name, and go from there. So, I had to pay my own, because a lot of people have the property taxes rolled into their mortgage payment. I didn't. And I'm like, how am I going to pay for this? I don't have that much money in my checking account. What am I going to do? So I borrowed from my kids. I felt so utterly guilty because I'm like, this is, I'm an adult. What am I doing? Right. So I got through that, and then I talked to the county, and they're like, oh yeah, you can do an escrow plan. We have that plan. You can just pay every single month. And then, when the bill is due, you'll pay, whatever it's the same amount every month, but it might be a little bit different on that last month. Great. Okay. That worked out. Kind of got my money situated. Tax refund came in, threw the money back into the kids' account. And I'm like, okay, we got this. But, now I'm on a monthly plan.
Right.
Well, Care Credit is wonderful. I don't know if you've talked about it on your show, but to me, it's wonderful because the first time I used it, I said, I don't have $1,000 to put on my credit card and try to pay it off without interest by next month. They're like, oh, you can get a Care Credit. It's good for vets. It's good for dentists, doctors, whoever type of those types of places take it. Now, I did have some procedures this last year, but they didn't take it. I'm like, okay, but they still gave me a payment plan of 12 months at zero, just charge my card once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at that and said, okay, well, it was a crown. So it was $1,000. So you have 6 months. So you do that easy math and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And again, it's always at the wrong time of your money. So I pulled up my phone. I said, how many more weeks until October 25th? And Google told me, Siri, whomever, right? And I said, okay, took the amount, divided it by that many weeks. I said, I can afford $62 a week.
Oh, Okay. So
right?
it was more of first we do the math and then we psychologically wrap our head around it and say, if I break this down into these bite-sized pieces, it suddenly is doable and feels doable.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. So, as I was kind of going through that transition, if you will, it was the same thing. I called up the life insurance company. I'm like, "Can I pay?" They're like, "Yeah, no problem." I'm like, "Okay." So it's like $48 goes out of my account every single month at the same time of the month. So, we think we got to pay it all. No, we don't. Well, I should I should say that. We think we need to pay it all when the bill is due.
Right now, right. Whatever
Right
the date
now.
on that piece of paper is,
Right.
whatever the date on that
Right.
email is.
Right. So the other thing that has move fast forward to 2022, 2023. So the county said, "Hey, we're looking at taking away this property tax thing." I said, "Okay, no problem. I got my feet wet. It's a few $100s a month. You just take out of my account. I'm good with that." And I said, "Well, if I took $100 a week, you don't really miss $100 a week, right? $100 a week goes into a savings account. By the end of 6 months, you have $2,600.
I was going to say that it was very forward thinking of your municipality to have those monthly payment abilities because
Right.
a lot of states, a lot of towns don't allow that for property taxes. It is once a year or every 6 months. It's not an option. They're not taking your check and cashing it every month.
Well, and that's funny is that, when this first started, I said, "Okay, I got some extra money. I'm just going to send an extra check to pay down towards it." They
Uh-huh.
returned my
They
check.
returned it. Yep. I was going to say that. And they won't even allow you because it's
Right.
different than the federal government who
Right.
doesn't care about holding on to your money throughout the rest of the year and then putting it towards your federal taxes later on. Most municipalities don't want the liability of holding on to your money. So you did
Right.
try to do it with them.
Right. And I can pay my taxes. I can pay my property taxes with a credit card with like an extra 7% service fee.
Oh my gosh. Excuse
Right.
me.
Right. So I don't want to pay interest no matter what. We all have debt. It's like we all have weight, right? It depends on what you're comfortable with. But I'm like, I do not want to pay interest. So I said,
Yeah.
I've got to figure out a way. So it was really nice. Just a few last month, I just went literally. This is just insane to think about. I went into my savings account. I said, online bill pay to the county. So my bank took out of my savings, wrote a check, and sent it
Oh,
in the mail
nice.
to my property taxes. Didn't have to
Nice.
write a check, didn't have to figure out how to transfer the money out, didn't even have to pay for the stinking postage.
Amen.
And because
Yeah.
when it came through and you saw it in the bank account, you saw that it was a physical check. It wasn't a balance transfer.
Right. Right.
Like if you send it to Visa, it's always just electronic money and boom, it's done.
Yeah. And
Right.
you're not incurring any of the, 7% for a credit card. I don't know that I've ever heard that. That's unbelievable, that type of service charge.
Well, and then on top of that, and again, as I was kind of building, just the weekly debt plan just came to me just because it's like, how do I manage this? Same thing is, my electric bill and my trash bill, if I, again, 2, 3, 4% if you pay with a credit card. So
Yeah.
I have to keep money in my account. Well, you can't pay your mortgage with a credit card. And if you do, you're in a lot more trouble than you think. Right?
Yes.
So that's where I had to look at my money and say, I only have so much money in my bank account at any given point in time, and I need to make sure I cover those bills.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think,
yeah.
I also think, what did that do psychologically for you, looking at it in those tiny chunks? And also, how did having to go in and check on your money weekly change your relationship with it?
Well, I check my money daily and sometimes a
Daily.
few times daily. Just,
Okay.
I don't know. We just do.
But there
How,
are people
how
out
that
there
changed
that you and
things.
there's people out there that you and I have worked with who
Right.
log into their online bank account, they see the balance and that's all they do. Oh,
Right.
I have money. They don't
Right.
realize their mortgage payment is literally going through the next 3 hours. Like it's just more of like, oh, I see dollars and I'm going to go spend them. but you're going in and you're paying very close attention on at least a weekly basis,
Yes.
which I think is a lot more than most of the people I talk to.
Well, and you asked me about my feeling. It's like, how much? I mean, my threshold is $1,500.
Okay.
I don't know about your threshold. Some people are lucky to have a $5 threshold, and you've worked with some clients like that, and so have I. So it's just that mental. If I have less than $1,500, I'm kind of nervous, but then it's like, okay, well, tomorrow's payday. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it, right?
Right.
Because I know that my mortgage isn't coming out that next day, and I know that I'm getting paid the next day, so it's going to pop more money in there. So I think that just really just relieved a lot of stress of looking in my bank account and seeing $200 and going, oh crap, what's coming out? So you don't even have to worry about that, because guess what? It's called, I called it Transfer Tuesdays. So because the banks sometimes are closed on Mondays. All your federal holidays are on a Monday. So Transfer Tuesdays, and then it just takes it. So I put $12 away into my car insurance, because my car insurance company lets me get a discount if I pay it in full. Well, I put it on the credit card when $12 is nothing. $12 is Starbucks 2 times a week. $12 is nowadays going to McDonald's for one meal.
Oh no, it's not even that. I spoke to a client the other day. They were coming out of a swim meet.
Maybe breakfast.
And they were coming out of a swim meet, and they just literally did not have time. They are not fast food people. But she just stopped and she goes, I couldn't get the kids McDonald's for less than $40. And she was shocked. She hadn't been there in so long. Yep. And, she's just going this meal, this meal, this meal, and this meal. So 4 of them. She's like, it was $40-something.
Yeah.
It's a shock. It's fast food is not the cheap option anymore.
Yeah. No, unless you're literally going to like the dollar menu, which is now like $1.50 or $2, but still. Anyway, we can go on tangents about that subject too.
I want to ask about the Transfer Tuesdays. So do you have certain transfers? Because I really love this weekly debt plan thing. I think this is something easy for people to wrap their heads around. The name is very simple and very clear. Great marketing. But also, like I said, it forces the people who are kind of head in the sand, pretending to be an ostrich when it comes to their money. It forces them to at least face it once a week. So for the Transfer Tuesdays, give me an example of what was transferring on those days. So we talked about the car insurance.
So I did a balance transfer for like $3,500. So $85 every week was going to pay that back. I do $12 for my car insurance, $100 for my property taxes. And I just kept on making more savings accounts in my bank because they let me. Yes. So it's like, think about the cash envelopes, right? So many people do the cash envelopes. They're loving it. It works for them. Fantastic. I personally don't have time to go to the bank, get the cash out, do all that stuff. And then I can't say I would be tempted, but my teenage daughter would be funny and go, oh, I'm going to take this money. It's like, no, so I'm tucking away. That is a bill every single week. I'm tucking it away. So that has really helped me too, is that because I know that those bills are there every single week. So go back to that Visa bill that I did the balance transfer for. I paid my transfer fee immediately because I didn't want that getting interest on it.
Yep.
So that $85 a week. Well, 85 times 4, that first of all, $85 is more than the minimum payment of usually $35.
Oh, right.
Right? Because we all sit there and go, oh, I got a balance transfer at 0% for 12 to 18 months. Let me pay it off 2 months before it's due.
Yeah.
Crap, where do I find $7,000? Well, no, if you would have paid $85 a week.
It would have made a huge difference, right?
Right. Okay. But I digressed here because talk about the care credit. So at the end, Visa is going to say you have $2,000 left. I'm going to put 19.99% on $2,000. If you had your dog surgery for $5,000 and didn't pay it off in 6 months, they would say, I'm going to take your percentage rate from day one at $5,000. So again, I was darn not going to let anybody charge me for that interest fee. So that's why I broke it down. So even if that, again, let's take that number. It's $85 a week to pay for your dog's surgery. You paid the minimum payment. It's more than the minimum payment. You don't miss $85. because you
Yeah.
always have money coming in. If you have small bits of money going out and you have big chunks of money coming in, it actually evens out.
It works.
Amazingly.
So Nancy,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's genius. It makes sense to me. That's how I got started paying off my own debt. I used a little spreadsheet. And the reason I started doing it weekly was because I was in a job at that time that paid weekly,
Mhm.
which is not normal anymore by
Right.
any stretch. I
Right.
mean, I don't think
Right.
I work with anybody who gets paid weekly. And so I was like, okay, every week there's money in my account. What am I doing with the money this week? What am I doing with the money next week? But it didn't occur to me to break those up into 4 weeks. It was more of a matter of attacking what was due that week. So there was still
Mhm.
some stress associated with it for sure.
Right.
But I eventually, I don't want to say grew out of it. I eventually wrapped my head around it
Yeah.
and said, okay, this is how I should be paying these bills. I should know that this is due on the 16th. This is due on the 20th, like you said, and I should be planning accordingly for those things. And I had $60,000 in credit card debt. So I'm with you. I feel you. But Nancy, what would you say is the dumbest thing that you've ever done with money?
Oh my God. Well, I did it in silence. I mean, money is taboo as it is. And then when you buy a timeshare, you really don't want to tell anybody. Because you start telling people and they're like, well, look it up online, how to get out of timeshare. And I love it was, I think it was Clark. It probably Dave would say the same thing. Well,
Clark Howard, yeah.
they would say, well, just don't buy one. That doesn't help. I've already made the purchase. I want to get out. How do I do this? Okay. So, 2017, my birthday was July 17th, right? So 7/17/17 just sounded enticing. So I was seeing somebody at the time and I'm like, let's go to Vegas for my birthday. 7/7/7, it just made sense, right? So of course, you go to Vegas, they offer you credit for whatever, for buying, for doing the timeshare presentation.
Presentation, right. Yep. Oh no.
What the heck was I thinking? I mean, what the heck was I thinking? Okay, so I'm divorced. So my vision for the future, that must have been clouding it all, honestly. So I had child support. I had maybe the end of my spousal support because I only got a third of my marriage. And I was making $13 an hour at the school as a recess aide, working 15 hours a week. Why? Why
What were you thinking?
Okay.
Would you say it was like an emotional purchase? Like, did you justify it? What do you remember going through your head?
I think it was an emotional thing. I'm like, oh, like I could go traveling and it, once a week, once a year, we can do this. And yeah, I think that's what it was.
Well, our friend Laura is watching and she said, but you get a vacation yearly, an expensive one.
Okay, Laura, I just want to let you know. Okay, so let me continue the story. I never did take one single vacation because I couldn't figure out how to get it together, right? So if you didn't take the vacation, you could take the points and you get Hilton points. So the next year, we went back out to Vegas again. And what did I do?
What did you do?
I said, sure. Instead of $200 a month, let's get a better place for $300 a month.
Oh, you increased it. So you went back to the same presentation and increased the level basically?
No, okay. No, what it was is that they came back and said, hey, why don't you come back and see us? It's been a year and blah, blah, blah. And of course they're excited for you to be there and they want to up your program and stuff like that. And again, I said, yes. I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? I was thinking, okay, I can afford this. So my first one was 200. So really 200 times 12 wasn't that much, but then it's like the $800 yearly fee. So then as I got into it a little bit more and I read it, I was like, oh, this is one of those things. If I died today, my kids have to take care of it. And then they have to pay that fee every single year, right?
Right.
And I said, no, this isn't gonna work. I gotta, I gotta get out of this because I never went on one single vacation. That's exactly true. As I just converted it to Hilton Honors points. And then I would, use that for traveling. And then when COVID hit, I just used it for Amazon, by the way. So what I did is I started to look around and said, how do I get out of it?
Yeah.
Again, all these financial gurus are like, well, don't buy one. Well, okay, that's not going to help. So I dropped a little bit of money with a company that said they were going to try to sell it for me. Yeah, I felt scammed. That money's gone. Move on, just move on. So I said, okay, I'm going to contact Hilton directly and see if they'll buy it back. So there's a little place on their website. It's like when you log into your account, it's like on the top right, there's actually a place where you can go down and scroll down and say, I want to sell it back. You can contact that department. So I contacted that department. They said, yeah, you can sell it back if it's paid in full. Okay, well, that's $20,000. I didn't have $20,000. But I did have $20,000 because the year before I refinanced my mortgage. Because if you remember, I got out on my divorce, I got a mortgage, but I got an ARM mortgage.
Okay.
So I knew I needed to get out because I didn't know what was going to happen. So it was like 5 at the time. And I think that I went down to 3 and I just refinanced this recently again for 2. Cause I'm like, at this point, I'm never getting out of mortgage debt until I sell the house. So whatever. It is what it is and move on.
But 2% is still a big difference from 5% for sure. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So I refinanced. They're like, oh, we can give you an extra $20,000. I'm like, perfect. Then I can, use that to pay off my credit card bills and things like that because, I had accumulated being a stay-at-home mom and trying to figure out how to pay my bills on a limited budget and then working $13 an hour for not 40 hours a week. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go through the process. And they're like, well, you need to pay off the $20,000. I said, okay. And I said, do you take Hilton American Express? And they're like, yes, we do. I said, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So at least I took advantage of it a little bit.
Right.
I took advantage of it a little bit. So I got the Hilton Honors points. Great. So I literally put $19,000 on my credit card.
Oh my gosh.
Because even though I've had high credit, like I said, $40,000 of debt, my credit score's in the 800. People want to give me money because I pay my bills on time, never been late. I watch how I get, all the good things about the credit score. I'm doing all the right things.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, I'll go, I put $19,000 on the credit card. So I had like a few $1,000s left anyways from that 20,000.
Okay.
So I was able to apply that. And then of course, 2020 hit.
Right.
So they were this close to getting everything done. It was March. I was like, oh, everybody's working from home. Sorry, we can't help you right now.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's fine. And I kind of just let it sit for a while. But like I said, I had to pay that off before I could do anything. So my tax refund kind of helped to pay that off. So a little bit of that mortgage money, a little bit of the tax money. Eventually I got it paid off. I paid them off, but I just needed to pay off my personal debts.
Right.
So when everything kind of came back to normal, like, I don't know, around May, when people were like, oh yeah, we're working from home, things like that, I kept on asking. I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Good.
Because, can I get this done? So they actually, and then they gave me $2,500 for 24 something and change to buy it back. So when I made all the figured it all out and I, filled out all the paperwork and everything was done, they sent me a check for $2,400. Wow. And then, of course, that went to my credit card that I was paying off.
The credit card bill, right?
Because I already knew that in the back of my mind. I'm like, once I get this done, then I get that $2,500 back. It's not $20,000, but at least it's something,
Right, and you can throw it at the Amex.
And I don't have to pay that $800 a year for maintenance fees.
Yeah, and the thing that really got you started on it, it's not going to get transferred to your children. It is unbelievable the contracts that we allow those timeshares to put us into. It's just, it's so scary how hard it is to get out, that it does transfer. The only other contract I've seen that I personally feel is as damaging, underhanded, is some of these solar contracts where it attaches to your house.
Yeah.
And then you can't sell the house unless you also sell the solar contract.
Oh yeah.
It's
that
hard.
guy
They're not
came
all
by-
like that. They're not all like that, but some of them
They came by
are.
the other day talking about solar, and I'm like, nope, don't want to do it, because I was like, I don't want to deal with all of these extra things.
Right.
I got enough going on. I don't need that. But wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. So how would I have changed it?
Yeah. What would you do differently if we could go back to that first presentation?
Yeah. If I could go back to that first presentation, I'd say, this is fantastic. I can't. And the stupidest thing, which is also, irritating, is that my friend knew I wouldn't be able to afford $200 a month. I mean, really, there's no way I should. There's no way I should have. I should not have been able to afford $200 a month, because right around that time, I had lost my child support, or excuse me, my spousal support. I actually filled out the paperwork for school, and I was on free and reduced lunch plan for my kids. Yeah. I shouldn't have been able to afford $200. Yeah. So my dumb mistake is $20,000. Hilton just got $20,000 of my money.
Right. For nothing, pretty much.
And I can't get it back. But that is a real hard lesson to learn, and I've moved on from it. And yeah, I enjoy the presentation, say no, get your ticket credit and credit, and just get out of there.
Get out of there. I know we're going a little long, but I want to touch on you've said it multiple times, the thought process of, we've got to move on. Yeah. We're moving on. We've moved on, whatever you want to call it. How do you integrate that in your coaching? Because that's very difficult for some people. They really get stuck in judging themselves, judging their mistakes, the guilt, the shame we mentioned. How do you implement that with your clients?
Well, one of the first things I do say is, I mentioned it earlier, but I don't say, when you're doing your budgeting, drop your Starbucks, because that's what everybody says. Because I look at that and say, if that is your self-care 2 to 3 times a week, to have that 20 minutes by yourself, especially as a mother, by all means, take it. Mm-hmm. Figure out what else is in it. So after we go through my program and they understand where their debts are, and how to reduce the interest rates and make some changes and so forth, it's like, okay, now let's look at the categories. And one of my clients is like, oh my God, we go to Chick-fil-A a lot. I'm like, but if that is, like you said, if that's what gets you through because you didn't have dinner that night, just the fact that she saw it and made it there, it's like, okay, those are the things that you need to look at and say, how can I change? I am not the one that's going to judge you and tell you anything to make changes to, but you see the categories and you see where your money's going. And if you want, I'll help you. But I'm sure that there's a few things that you're sitting there going to yourself, I'm not telling Nancy about this. Because, again.
Yep, it is. We've got to. Yeah. We're working at breaking that stigma, right? That's part of our job, for sure.
And they're figuring out, I need to spend less. I mean, even I saw my mom this weekend and she showed me her budget. I'm like, oh my God, you were spending $200 a month on cigarettes.
Mom.
She's 85 years old and stopped because the doctor said you have something on your lung. After 60 years of smoking, she, took the lozenges for a month and poof, stopped smoking. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know how expensive that was.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Again, I'm not there to judge. I'm there to support.
Yes.
I'm going to make some suggestions. And again, we looked at the categories and I just said, what are some things that you can slim down? And then they make their choices for themselves.
I love it. Nancy, I knew we were going to go long. I told you. Well, everybody, Nancy's contact information is in the show notes, and you can find her. Email her directly at nancy@weeklydebtplan.com. I love it. And be sure to check us out next week for another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thanks again, Nancy.
Thank you so much.